Good morning, UTLA family, students, educators, and parents who are joining us. Shout out to our educators who are teaching summer school, which wraps up soon. I know you're already preparing to say goodbye to a whole new cadre of children you've bonded with. I hope you find rest and relaxation now that your summer is truly beginning. In today's session, I'll be taking you through our bargaining platform and ways we are building specific proposals through member feedback. So, of course, the major news this week is that LAUSD announced that school sites will remain closed when the new school year begins in August. This is absolutely the right thing to do in the face of the alarming spike in COVID cases, the lack of necessary funding from the government to open schools safely, and the outsized threat of death faced by working class communities of color. There really is no other choice that doesn't put thousands of lives at risk. But that doesn't mean tears weren't shed by parents, educators, and students. We know students do best in our physical learning communities where they get the support of caring adults, can participate in sports and clubs, and connect with their peers. Nothing replaces that. And we will be back in our schools as soon as it is safe. We are bargaining with the LAUSD on what that looks like. And I want to say up front that nothing has been agreed to. Rumors are out there, but they are just that, rumors. There's no agreement yet on any details. Up until Monday, when the district finally agreed not to have folks return to schools in August, our bargaining sessions were focused on the prevention of thousands of unnecessary deaths that would have resulted from an unsafe return to school sites. Now, we have shifted to focus on improving crisis distance learning. Our bargaining team met yesterday with the district for an informational session, and bargaining will start next week. We will push for an aggressive bargaining schedule in an attempt to reach an agreement by early August. Any agreement reached would be voted on by members. Our platform centers on 3 priorities. 1, the necessary conditions for the eventual safe return to school sites. 2, improvements to crisis distance learning. And 3, the social safety net that families need to get through this crisis. We will use member survey data to shape specific UTLA proposals along with input from committees representing special education, health and human services, early education, substitutes, adult education, and more. We formed a new crisis distance learning task force with rank and file members who lived the crisis learning last school year and know firsthand the pitfalls and the promise. We are involving a diverse membership in a very short amount of time. This week, our platform was endorsed by an overwhelming majority of UTLA school site chapter leaders at the UTLA area meetings on Wednesday. Chapter leaders committed to these conditions being met before we can physically return to school sites. I'll share those numbers. South area, 86% of chapter leaders endorsed our platform. Valley West, 90%. North area, 96%. Harbor area, 74%. East area, 77%. West area, 90%. Valley East, 91%. Central, 98%. And early childhood educators, 94%. That is a broad and deep support across all areas. Your chapters will be holding meetings as soon as possible so that you and your colleagues can discuss the necessary conditions for a safe return to schools. So now let's take a deeper dive into our bargaining platform. There'll be a link to it in the comments. right below. The platform document is not broken into these categories, but they're a useful way to group our vision. Let's look at a safe return to school sites. This section of our platform outlines the minimum conditions that would need to be in place, including minimal virus infection rates indicating no community spread, 100% available free testing and treatment, social distancing, class sizes of no more than 12, PPE, adequate ventilation, and hand sanitizing stations, staggered arrival, recess, lunch, and pickup times, one-way travel in hallways, strict cleaning and sterilizing regimens for all spaces, and staff and student symptom and temperature screening before entering buses or even school buildings. These recommendations are all guided by science, and there is consensus among health experts that these are the necessary protocols to make schools as safe as possible. Another bargaining priority is to improve crisis distance learning. You know, we don't use the phrase distance learning. We call it crisis distance learning because that is exactly what it is. In March, we closed schools with little notice, grabbing what we could on the way out of the door. Soon after, UTLA bargained an agreement with LAUSD to make the best of a crisis situation. That agreement was right for the moment, but now, 5 months later, we're in a different place. We must and we can improve crisis distance learning so it works better for everyone, especially our most vulnerable students. We all want a stronger, robust program. Our bargaining team is continuing to develop specific proposals on crisis distance learning informed by a framework that includes equitable online access, devices and training for all students, educators, and health and human service staff, free tutoring classes for parents to help them better assist their children, dedicated staff teams to follow up with at-risk students and those who have been out of contact with their teachers, better communication in all languages, use of substitute teacher teams for daily academic support, teacher-driven professional development focused on adapting to crisis distance teaching, and additional support for our special ed students. We expect the district to push hard for hours to be more consistent with our contract and for some level of mandatory live video instruction to be required. Know this, we will continue to seek feedback and push for reasonableness and flexibility like we did with our previous agreement. Many members are asking about going to your classrooms and conducting Zoom meetings from there, where you can focus without the distractions of home. This is definitely a possibility. We'll address this question in bargaining with an eye toward flexibility and pedagogical value, along with health and safety standards at school sites. Our third bargaining priority is the social safety net of our communities need to get through this crisis. And COVID-19, as you know, is not an isolated event. It comes with repercussions that go beyond the virus itself. It is not incidental that COVID-19 is hitting Black and Brown communities harder than white communities in Los Angeles. That relates to poverty and housing disparities, who is engaged in essential work, the lack of access to healthcare, and the pre-existing conditions that result from that lack of access. LA families need support. 32% of households in the US have not yet made their July mortgage payments and rent. The reality is that to survive this crisis, The government needs to help pay people to stay home. And that means rent and mortgage relief, enhanced unemployment and other income supports. And our platform includes paid sick and family leave for all workers and free universal COVID-related testing and treatment. Continued $600 a week unemployment benefit boost and other income supports regardless of immigration status. Rent and mortgage forgiveness, taxing the rich and corporations, starting with the passing of Prop 15, or you know it as Schools and Communities First. Investment in healthcare, community, and job programs with a focus on remedying racism and inequity, with repurposing significant funding for police and prisons toward these programs. Full funding of IDEA, special education, and the Title I by the federal government. Moratorium on new charters and co-locations, and a requirement that charter schools adhere to district policies regarding the physical opening and or reopening of school sites. That's the framework of our bargaining platform. Some of you might want to know why we're talking about the common good demands in the first place. We know that sometimes issues may seem unrelated, but in fact, the structures and priorities of our society are directly related to this public health crisis. We also have to consider the things we've been fighting for when it comes to eradicating institutional racism in education. This is our moment to be in front and lead. As I said at the start, UTLA chapters should be holding meetings to talk about this platform. We'll be using your feedback and member survey data to shape specific UTLA proposals, along with input from committees and our new crisis distance learning task force. We made a bold call last week to keep schools closed and save lives. And we have an equally bold platform for the safe return to school. All of this has made us a target for the far right. They say you can judge a person by their enemies. Well, by the folks who attacked us this past week, we are a powerful organization that is a threat to the status quo. Trump tweeted his displeasure about schools staying closed. Fox host Laura Ingraham attacked us on her show, and even the Wall Street Journal is running scared because we want to reset the balance of power that has allowed US billionaires to accumulate $584 billion in wealth and in profit, while millions of Americans can't even pay their rent. When your position is righteous, the other side must use lies and disinformation. Our platform does not call for our refusing to return to work until all of our demands are won. Anyone who claims otherwise is lying to score political points and put pressure on educators and students to go back to school in unsafe conditions. Trump and others unleashed their followers to engage us in attacks on us. If you've been caught in a comment war with someone who strongly disagrees with you, I'm sorry. As great as it is to see our community of educators clap back at the negative commentary, no one, I mean no one, should be subject to racist, sexist, and abusive attacks. We will not be deterred from what is right. They're not intimidating us. They are fueling us to move forward. Like during our strike, we are recognizing our responsibility in this moment to advocate for ourselves and our LAUSD families. We are saying that we need safety guarantees and a massive reduction in COVID-19 infections before we can return to school buildings. It is hard to imagine how that can happen without more funding, without free testing and treatment, with people being forced by economic crisis to go back to work prematurely, and with thousands of families being evicted from their homes and forced to live in even more dense or precarious situations where the virus can thrive. Will social distancing and hand washing stations at schools work if the virus is devastating everyone outside of the school sites? Science would tell us no. And there's something that I definitely need to get to. We must recognize our secret weapon, our members, many of whom are stars of our new paid media campaign that we launched this week with digital ads on the LA Times, LA Daily News, La Opinion, Pandora, and Spotify. Folks like Kimmy Hingston from Wilton Place Early Education Center, my friend and former colleague, Noriko Nakata from Emerson Middle School, Maynard Brown from Crenshaw High, Aldo Robles from LA Tech Center, PSW, Gisela Carrera, special ed teacher, Carla Griego, Anthony Lopez from Roosevelt High Magnet, substitute teacher, Sin Tren, Carlos Monroy from El Camino Real Charter, teacher librarian Lisa Blackwell from Polytechnic High, Denisha Jordan from Lawrence Middle School, and Ebony Batiste from Brentwood Science Magnet. These are the faces of our digital ads, and starting next week on more than 80 billboards throughout our communities. They are sending our message during this unprecedented pandemic. Educators continue to fight for the health and safety and well-being of our students and our communities. Please take time to review our bargaining platform and talk about it with your colleagues. The pressure to open physical schools will intensify in the coming months, even if the science is not there to recommend it. We can only protect our lives and our students' lives if we are united and committed together for a safe return. It makes me heartsick to read about teachers in other states who are writing their wills because they are being forced back to work. I am so grateful that we are a part of a union that has the power to advocate for ourselves and our communities. Not everyone has that. Keeping schools closed is not a red or blue issue. We are fighting for the basic fundamental idea of keeping people alive. Other school districts are following our lead, and that is where we want UTLA to be, leading, not following. If we eventually want to be back in person with our students, we must continue to take bold action. Together, we have to build well-funded schools with the necessary conditions to protect everyone's health, robust student supports, and resources for hard-hit communities so they can survive this crisis as well. Everything I do centers around a love for students and the classroom. And I know every educator feels the same way. I am proud of our union, and I look forward to doing this work with you. Until next time, be safe, take time for yourself, stay united. We need you. we're UTLA strong.